Good morning, everybody. We would love to welcome you to the first Exago Support Lab. I do want to give everybody a couple minutes to just get settled, so we will aim to come back and start at 11:03. Okay. Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for attending our first Exago Support Lab. Today we have myself. My name is Emma. I'm a support analyst here at Exago, along with Nicole Hittner and Evan Clark, who are also support analysts here. As you all know, this is the first of its kind, so we're all super excited that you're here for us, here to join us for it. It's something we've been working on for a while, and we're very excited to share it with all of you. We are going to keep you all muted for the duration of the webinar. However, we do have our questions pane that I'm sure you're familiar with if you've attended our basic or advanced end user training. We would ask you all just to type a Y or a yes right now so that we know we're coming through loud and clear. Okay, looks like I'm getting some, so that's great. Okay, so just to give you all a little synopsis of what we're looking to do here, we've been working from feedback based on the basic and advanced end user trainings to create a new, more interactive form of training, if you will, and we're titling it Exago Support Labs. As you are all aware, we asked on the registration form for questions or topics that you would like to see illustrated in future labs. For this first lab, we have taken cases from tickets that have been submitted by clients that we feel are applicable to many users and that will be solved with some sort of manipulation of the functionality of Exago that may require a more in-depth understanding of the software that we feel we're able to provide. This particular lab is going to illustrate a few workarounds that we've provided clients to create a behavior they were unable to accomplish in ways that seemed intuitive to them, with an end goal that you leave able to apply what we have discussed here to your own reporting, ultimately to improve your experience using Exago. One of these particular cases came in as a support ticket, and we bounced around a few ideas and were able to come up with 3 distinct report creation methods that bring us to a very similar output. Each displays the same data in the same format with slightly structural differences. Each also has its own strengths, and we will highlight them for you momentarily. So as I mentioned, this is based on a real support ticket that we received from a client. We have certainly amended the data being reported onto our trusty Northwind dataset, which we use in the basic and end user training. And we've modified the output accordingly so that it does make contextual sense, but the methods of creating the behavior are the same. I would like to note before we begin that we do use some functionality in this report creation that is only available in version 2016.2 of Exago. In one method, we sort on a formula. In a second, we utilize the new collated chained report functionality to display the data as we'd like. If you are on a previous version, please pay special attention to the second case that Evan will illustrate for you today, as this is functionality available in version 2013.1 and later. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and open a report and talk about it a little bit. So here we have a report. It's displaying some order information for us, and it is grouped by employee. So we see Nancy DeVolio at the top here, and then some order information for order IDs associated with her employee ID. And if we page through, we will see the same for other employees of Northwind. We do have the field discount all the way over here on the right, and I'd like to draw your attention to it for a moment. What we are going to do here is illustrate how to separate this order information based on whether or not it is discounted. But we want all discounted orders together regardless of the value of the discount. So any order with a discount value of 0 should be separated into one group labeled regular priced items, and all else should be in another labeled discounted items. What this means in terms of report structure is that we need to come up with a way to split this field into two parallel groups, not nested groups, as we are used to doing with Exago. With the way that Exago does handle groups, the report will nest them inside one another, and we want them to exist on the same tier, if you will, level with each other. So today we're going to show you 3 ways to accomplish this. Each report will be designed to take orders grouped first by employee, as you see here, and then it'll split them into discounted items and regular priced items. In the first example, we're going to create reports separately, the first filtered to show discounted items and the second filtered to show regular priced items. We then create a chained report made up of these two and collate them so that they display as we wish. In the second example, and I would like to modify my previous statement, I misspoke. This is the one that you want to pay attention to. It's actually going to be Nicole showing you if you are on a version prior to 2016.2. In this example, we will use repeating groups to generate a similar report and illustrate for you how to put the groups together. And then in the final one, we're going to show you how to force the headers into binary categories in order to display them correctly based on the data returned in the details section. We will also, in one of these examples, explain and demonstrate how to display aggregates in the headers, as this is a question that often comes in, as aggregates are not designed to be placed in headers, but often are helpful displayed there. Additionally, before I pass it off to Evan, I do want to mention that we encourage questions throughout the entire webinar. We don't want you to feel that you have to hold them until the end for any reason. We will be checking the question pane the entire time and hope to be able to answer them as we walk through each example, rather than backtracking at the end to avoid confusion, maybe clear it up earlier if we can, and really focus on the questions. We will answer questions live, as in the basic and end user training that we feel would benefit the entire group, and otherwise we'll be sure to reach out to you individually to provide the support you need. All right, so that's the end of the beginning spiel, and I'm going to pass it over to Evan to get us started.
Thanks, Emma. Good morning, everybody. So as Emma mentioned to you, I'm going to be showing you the first example. Now, this first example, like she also previously mentioned, if you are not on Exago 2016.2 or any version of 2016.2, rather, this will preclude you from using this. But out of the 3 solutions that we're going to provide to you today, or the 3 workarounds, I guess you could say, this is by far the easiest. Let me do a little bit of cleanup. So for this example, we're going to be working with 2 separate disparate reports. So this report that we have titled Binary 1 is grouped by employee ID, with the header being the employee's last name and first name. And this will show the regular priced items per the filter criteria. And the second report is very much identical, with the only difference being we're now going to show the discounted products and filter accordingly. So because these 2 reports share the same sort, if we navigate to the sorts menu for this, we could see the sort on orders.employeeid, orders.employee ID for both of these reports. What this allows us to do, so say your end goal here is to be able to create a report that combines both the discounted products and the regular priced items, but rather than showing them intermingled with each other, we would like to show them as two separate groups. So collating these on the common sort of orders.employee ID will allow you to create a master report, I guess you could say, based off of these two separate reports without having to combine them into an actual standard report. So this may sound a little bit confusing or counterintuitive, but why don't I begin walking you through the example. So to create a chain report, you'll start just like any other report type. So you can either right-click or click the new report dropdown. So we'll select chain report. And again, just like any other report, we'll give this report a name. So collated chain report. Choose a location to save it. And here's where this starts to differ from a lot of our other new report wizards. So here what we'll be doing is we will be choosing the reports to add to this chain report. So we would like to see the results from binary 1 and binary 2. What we can then do is, now that we have these two reports added, one of the things you may notice is we have this available export types grid. So we've kind of built in some logic into our application to sense what the allowed export types are for the two reports or two or more reports that are added to this chain report. And what it will do is it will find a common export type amongst them. So you can see that this top report, binary 1, here's where HTML would be, and here is where Excel would be. So we can see that this report is only allowed to be exported to PDF and RTF, whereas binary 2 is only allowed to be exported to PDF and, CSV, so this would be Excel. So we can see that the common export type amongst these two reports is PDF, meaning that this will be restricted to PDF, but that's just a minute detail. So next to this, we have the Edit Reports Options button. And if you click this, some of you may recognize this menu. This is very much similar to the filters menu that we show in the dashboard for handling prompting filters on dashboards. And this very much works in the same way. So the filters that will populate here are filters that are prompting on the report. So let's say, so we clicked that for binary 1. Let's navigate back to binary 1. We say that we have a prompting filter on orders.orderDate. And we actually have that same filter for binary 2 as well. So what this will allow us to do if we navigate into the report options is we can set a common prompt filter rather than report prompt or assign value. So common prompt meaning that any report contained in this chain report that has a filter on this field, so they both have a filter on orders.orderDate, can be affected by this one filter control. So we'll leave this as common prompt so we can affect both of these reports. And because there are no promptable parameters on this report, this will show as empty. Now, because we set that to common prompt, we don't need to go in and do the same for this because it affects both reports. But say we were setting two different filters in each report, then you would set each to report prompts. Fairly intuitive. So next, if we navigate to the Options tab, we can choose the default export type, which, like I said, is limited to PDF because that's the commonality amongst the two reports. We can choose to set a no data qualified action. So if one of these reports were to yield no data qualified because of the filter criteria, we could either show a blank report container or we could just omit that report from the chain report. And here is the most important option for this section. So this allows us to, if we were to click this, this is what will allow us to collate on the common sort of orders.employee ID. Now, for those that are not familiar with collation, this is not specific to Exago. There are other products, or the idea of collation, rather, like I said, is not specific to Exago. It's a common theme. So what this will allow us to do is it will allow us to show the grouping based on the orders.employee ID, but then show the subgroups beneath it and only show once. So that explanation is a bit confusing, but if I were to export this report, sorry, I just need to move something out of my way. So if I were to export this to PDF, here's where we'll see the filters menu pop up, and you'll see that this filter is affecting reports binary 1 and binary 2, so I can make any modifications to the filter criteria or the filter operator if I need to. Go ahead and click OK. It'll go through the report execution process. And now we'll see the combined report. So here's where we have the grouping on the employee's last name and first name. And then we have the one group for the regular priced items. Then within that same employee, we have the second group for the discounted items. So this allows you to combine these two separate reports into one report on execution, but without actually having to format your report in such a way in the report designer that it shows both of these. But moving forward in examples 2 and 3, we'll show you 2 other ways to accomplish relatively the same functionality, but actually being able to combine them into one whole standard report. So with that, I'd like to take a quick pause to see if anyone has any questions before passing things on to Nicole. Okay, so one of the questions that did come in was, can we create a change report to attach to a dashboard? This is not currently available within the application. We don't support change reports to the report viewer, which dashboards are limited to, but this is something we are considering doing in the future. Okay, so I'll just give everyone another minute or so to enter in any questions before passing things on to Nicole. And if you can't think of any questions right now, or if something comes to you in the next section, we can just handle them towards the end. Okay, so it doesn't look like anything else is coming in immediately. So with that, I'd like to pass things over to Nicole.
Thank you so much, Evan. Hi, everyone. I'm Nicole, and as Evan said, I'm going to walk you through creating this report using just one report rather than a chain report consisting of 2 component reports. So let me just do a little cleanup. Okay. So one way of accomplishing this report is to use repeating groups. And those of you who have attended our basic end user training may not be familiar with this functionality. Those of you who have attended the advanced end user training may have encountered this before and perhaps used it in your own reporting. The repeating group section, and if you're confused about where you would access those, they are at the very bottom of the list of available sections here in the sections drop-down menu. They are designed essentially to be used where there is a multiple one-to-many relationship between one field and the groups that you would like to appear for each of those fields. So in this case, we would like to see both regular price products and discounted products per employee. And each employee has many regular price product orders as well as many discounted product orders, which is why we are able to use the repeating group structure here in this way. And you'll notice that each of the repeating groups is going to repeat once for each employee.employee ID. And the way this is going to appear in the output, I'm just going to run this for you, is as we saw with the change report. So we have Nancy DeVolio and then the first regular price products group appearing for her. And if we toggle through, we'll see on the second page her discounted products. And if we scroll down, we begin then with Andrew Fuller. So you can see that we don't progress to the next employee until both of the subgroups have been, or the repeating groups rather, have been covered for that employee. The one thing that makes this solution slightly more complicated than the solution that Evan shared with everyone is that we're going to have to split the orders into 2 groups using logical formulas here. And we're going to need to do that for each of the detail elements in the detail section. So using this one as an example, the logical formula says if order details.discount is equal to 0, in other words, if no discount has been applied, 0% discount, then we would like to see the order details.order ID field. Otherwise, we would like to see nothing at all, which is why this first repeating group is going to isolate only those orders where there was no discount applied. And then conversely, in the second group down here, in all cases across the detail section row, we're going to have this condition changed just slightly. So if order details.discount is greater than 0, if a discount, in other words, has been applied, we're going to show the order ID or else show null. So I'm going to walk you through the process of adding one of these repeating groups so that you can, if you so desire, use this in your own reporting. So we're going to begin by right-clicking on a section name, hovering over Add Section, and then selecting Repeating Group. Because we want this group to appear just once for each employee ID, we're going to have this group break on employee ID, which is one of our sorts. And then we're going to right-click and just move this section down because we'd like it to appear after our regular price products. You'll see that because I have changed what the where my rows are appearing, in this case, our cell reference here in cell E9 is incorrect. We really would prefer or desire for it to be referencing E7. So I'm going to go ahead and change that back. And then I'm going to go through the process of copying my header from the first section into the second. So I'm going to hold down the Shift key to highlight and then the Control key to copy and drag. I'm going to change this over to discounted products. And we'll apply our formatting. Okay. And then we'll do the same thing with the footer. And then what I'm going to do for the detail is copy each individually and adjust the condition to be greater than. Okay. And before I proceed to running the report, I'm also going to, just for stylistic purposes, mimic the same the row shading that I used in the first section. We do that by right-clicking on the section and selecting section shading. We're going to add two colors, the second of which is going to be gray. All right. Just looking over my work, making sure that I've changed all of the appropriate logical symbols here, which I have. I'm going to go ahead and run the report just to show you once more the output. So we have all of our regular priced items with a 0% discount applied, and then with a little bit more row height adjustment, we could have the same exact styling in our second section, which has discounts that are greater than 0 applied. And noting once more that we did not adjust appropriately our sum here. We want this, instead of referencing E7, we want it to reference E12. Let's just correct that and export one more time. Make sure we've corrected that. There we go. So I'm going to pause once more, as Evan did, just to give you all a chance to process that. And if anyone has any questions, feel free to enter those into the question pane and we'll address them now. So this functionality with repeating groups is available to everybody. I believe it's been available since version 2013.1. So even if you don't have 2016.2, this method of affecting the output is certainly available to you. Looks like there are a couple questions coming in. So one question is, can I have repeating groups that group by different columns in the same report? I believe the question is, can you have repeating groups that are that break on different groups or different sorts rather than the same sort? And the answer is yes. You're just going to want to apply that sort, and then when you go to create the repeating group, select the different sort for the group you're adding.
We additionally received a question, can a single prompt apply to both repeating groups? As Evan showed you how to filter the binary 1 and binary 2 reports once he collated it together with the same filter. In this case, these repeating groups are all on the same report. So if we were to apply a filter to this report, it's going to automatically apply to the entire thing. So we know that we're not able to filter by section or by row. So if you do apply a filter to this report, it is going to apply to every repeating group.
So we had a question asking how to create a new sort for a repeating group. Simply navigate over to the report options section over here, select sorts. If you don't have an existing sort that you would like to use, you can add one. Let's just take hire date, for example. Click OK. And then when you right-click to create your repeating group, hire date is now going to be an option, and you will have a repeating group appear once per hire date, and that stipulation will appear here at the top of the repeating group. If that answers the question.
Okay, so we'll give it one more minute here, just in case anyone is finishing up a question, because like I said, we do want to be able to answer them as we go through the relevant information. I think it makes it a little bit easier to answer and a little bit easier to understand when it's what we've just been talking about. But that being said, if you're still typing and we move on, please feel free to ask a question regarding a previous section, because we're happy to jump back and forth. All right, I think I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next section as long as Nicole is all set.
Yep.
Okay.
I think the questions have slowed down. So I'm going to pass things off to Emma, who is going to walk you through perhaps the most elegant solution to this design problem. So Emma, take it away.
Thank you so much, Nicole. I appreciate it. As Nicole said, I agree that this is perhaps the most elegant of solutions. It definitely utilizes the most different functionality in Exago, and it takes many different manipulations of that functionality and brings them together to create this report that we have been demonstrating. So I'm going to begin by showing you the final report after everything is implemented, and then we'll go through and show you how to apply each thing. So, all right. This report utilizes the sort by formula functionality that is new to version 2016.2, along with a few other key features of Exago, as I've said. So we're going to walk through this step by step. We're really going to break it down for you. We're going to go through each step that lends itself to the compilation of this entire report. We want to make sure that you leave here feeling like you could go home and recreate it yourself. So we know that we initially still want to display by employee. We are, as in the other two examples, grouping by employee ID. And just as a note regarding sorts in Exago, if we did want to, say, sort still by employee, but we wanted them to display alphabetically, we can use employee last name, and then we would start with the earliest alphabetic last name in the alphabet. If we sort by first name, we'll start with first names alphabetically. In this case, as I said, we're sorting on employee ID, as you can see here. I'll show you really quick. So we're getting them returned based on their ID number. Okay. So we know that we want to see products displayed by their discount status underneath each employee. So it's intuitive that we would need another sort here. So what we're going to do is create another group to be within employees, and I'm actually going to illustrate this in another report because I think that the intuitive step and the step that many clients and us ourselves have taken first is to try to sort on order details.discount. It seems like it would work. We want our information displayed by the discount value, and it certainly contains the information in that field needed to do the sort correctly, so why not? So we made a report where we did sort, and I'm just going to merge these to give it a little bit more space so you can see this. We're sorting on order details.discount. So if I run this report, you'll see that we're given first Nancy DeVolio, so we are still sorting on employee first, and then we're returned 0% discount. So if we, in plain English, this is going to be the regular priced items. They have no discount. This down here is going to be the 5% discount items, the 10% discounted items, and so on and so forth. And the issue here is that this will ultimately return a maximum of 11 groups per employee. There are 11 distinct values for discount. So instead of being broken up into two groups as the client was requesting us to find a way to do, we're reporting a new set of data for each distinct discount value. So if you were trying, as our sort on employee ID works, we want information reported for each distinct value, each distinct employee. But in this case, we only want two groups. We want to separate them into two level groups. So this is our issue here. And to accomplish this, we're going to manipulate our data using sorts and using that sort by formula to force the data into one of two categories based on the discount status. So I'm going to go back to our finished report really quick and into the sorts menu of that to walk you piece by piece through the formula that we're sorting on and explain why it works and how it's functioning. So if I go ahead into the sorts menu here, you can see that first one on employee ID, that's always going to be the primary sort. Then I'm going to go into the formula editor here so we can walk through this very slowly. So I know Nicole went through if statements a little bit, and certainly if you've attended the basic training, you are familiar with if statements. They're a pretty cool function in Exago. They take 3 arguments. So in this case, our first argument is this term right here, order details.discount. So we're using that field. So this is dynamic. It's going to populate based on the discount of the order ID. And then is greater than 0. So this is a statement that evaluates to either true or false. Either the discount is greater than 0 or the discount is 0. And then the second value is 1 and the third argument is 0. So what the if statement does is evaluates the first argument. If it evaluates to true, it will return the 1, the second argument. And if it evaluates to false or else, it'll return the 0. So now we've successfully split our order detail discount field into 2 groups rather than 11 separate distinct groups. So now when Exago evaluates this formula, the sorting logic is going to look only at the value returned, and it's going to order the data based on that, rather than looking at all of the values returned for order details.discount. It will only look for the value returned by this formula. So it's going to either see a 1 or a 0 associated with each order ID. And then in this case, we consider that 0 is before 1 and thus display all orders that are regularly priced first, followed by all orders that are discounted. So we have now succeeded in separating the data into 2 distinct groups. Okay, so now I'm going to take a small side trip. Another thing that many users have asked about is displaying aggregates and headers. So we have opted to take a moment to demonstrate it here as it does fit nicely with the feel of the reports that we're using here. So I'm going to go ahead and clean up a little bit. Okay. So this is a very simple idea. It's not going to take long at all to show. I'm going to go ahead into another sub-report just to illustrate it for you. It's something that we feel is very handy to know. It's a very simple idea and it's a very easy functionality to implement, but it is very relevant. With a report of length, it's definitely preferable to display summary information right at the top for many people, rather than having to page through pages and pages of data to find the summary information. So here, we have displayed the summary information at the top, and that way we can page through very quickly and see that Nancy DeVolio sold $12,963.30 worth of regular price products. So this can be very helpful for a number of different reasons when you're reporting on data such as this. So what I'm going to do here is head over to a little bit simpler version of this report that I just showed you and illustrate exactly how to add that aggregate. So what we're going to do first is add a footer. Aggregates are generally placed in a report footer, in a group footer. It's where they're meant to be calculated and where they calculate correctly. So we're going to go ahead and do that on this formula again, and I want to take a moment to just touch on that. So if we were to create our footer on employee ID, we would have the total revenue returned for each employee total. It wouldn't look at the revenue for each employee per discounted products, per regular products. It would add the entire sum together. And as we saw here, it was really handy to have that this is her total revenue for regular price products. And this is a different revenue for discounted products. And we can see that if we go back to our initial report and run it, that is a correct report of revenue. If you add those two together, you do get this value. So I'm going to create this group footer on this formula so that we see the aggregate displayed for when we return 1 and for when we return 0. Go ahead and press OK here. And then I'm going to place my aggregate formula in any of these cells down here. It really doesn't matter. And I'm sure that this, again, is something that we definitely touch on quite a bit in the basic training. Really quick, a question just came in, and I want to stop and answer it as we're going, just because I think it'll be more beneficial than backtracking later. The question is, are all formulas available in the group footers dropdown, or did you do something special to get there? So the functionality here is simply whatever's in your sorts menu. So I have added this sort on this formula, and that's what allows me to then add a section on it. So I can add any section on any sort that I have, with the exception, of course, of the detail section. But any section that's dependent on a sort can be added based on anything I have here. So in order to have a formula populate the group footers dropdown, you simply have to add the sort here. And if that wasn't clear, feel free to ask again, and I will certainly do my best to re-describe the solution. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and add my aggregate formula here. And this is just going to be a sum of my quantity times my unit price. Okay. And I do want to quickly note that I know that we're looking at these two headers right here, and we've seen these two headers in the output of this, and that they're displaying differently, and we will get in, that is the next step in going through this. So we will certainly get into that, and I don't want it to be confusing that they're displaying here and we're working with them here, because that is the very next step. It's just much easier to illustrate this aggregate and how it does work within this sort. So I'm actually going to go ahead and suppress this row, because if I'm going to then cell reference up to here, I don't want it to display twice. It's simply redundant. And then here I'm just going to cell reference the cell that this formula is in, so B10. And I'm going to do the same here. And because the formulas are aware of what section they're in, it will know to display only the sum of the discounted products next to here and only the sum of the regular price products next to here. Okay, so I'm going to run this report just to show you what we are now working with. This is the closest we've gotten with this third method of creating the report to what we're looking for. So I'm going to go ahead and execute just to give you an idea. And we're going to be very close, but not quite there. Okay, so we are still reporting by employee. We have Nancy DeVolio at the top, as we're used to seeing. We do have our information displayed correctly. And we do see that this whole group here is of 0% discount. So this is all regular price items. Our grouping logic is working correctly, but we have both headers displayed at the top. And we can also see that as we've identified these as regular price products, and the total revenue is listed as $12,963.30. That is the correct total revenue for regular price products. However, we also have this header discounted products with the same revenue listed, which is incorrect in this case. And if we page through, we can see that these are all discounted products. You can see various discounts applied here, but the revenue displayed is displayed for both headers. So our next problem becomes, how do we display only one header based on the detail information returned? And this is where we're really going to utilize that fact that we force the data into binary groups. So that's where this becomes the most important piece in play here. Since we know the way our sorts are going to evaluate this formula, and we have just double checked that in examining this report, we know it's going to return regular price products before it's going to return discounted products for each employee. So we expect to see that one first. So I need to find a way to display the correct header based on which information is returned. Okay. So I'm going to real quick jump to a third subreport that we have made to illustrate another possibility that may appear intuitive, but will not ultimately work, and I'll show you why in just a second. So if we go ahead over to this one, it may seem intuitive to use the field that we're actually working with, that we're reporting on, or excuse me, that we're organizing our data by as our header. It certainly should contain the information necessary to correctly label our groups. It is where we're pulling that evaluation from to begin with, so it seems like it would make sense. However, if we run this report, we'll see that for regular price items, which are still displaying first, it returns a 0% discount, which is correct, of course. But if we scroll down, we see that for discounted items, which are displayed down here, you can see a discount applied here, we only return the first value reported on in that details section. So while 25% is an accurate discount report for these first two order information, the third one is 10%. And if we page through, we have 10%, 25, 10, 5, 20. So we have many different values, and this header is incorrectly only returning 25% for this entire group. And that's not an accurate representation of what is actually contained in the group. Okay, so this is the really fun part. We're going to navigate to our final subreport to show you how to display the headers correctly as we have in this final report. So I'm going to go ahead over to our final subreport. I am going to close some of these out really quick. Okay, so in this one, you can see that we have both these headers, just as we do in our final report, but if I run this, they're both going to display just as in the last one. This is identical to the report that we just looked at. So how do we make these display conditionally? Well, we know in this case that we want to return the header discounted products if the data has a discount that is greater than 0, and regular price products if the data is not discounted or has a discount value of 0. So I believe, as we've mentioned, that many of you have seen the basic or advanced training, if not both, so the concept of conditional formatting should be fairly familiar to you. If not, I will take a moment to briefly explain it. It takes in an action, an attribute, and a formula. So I can show you really quick in the menu right here. If we navigate to our Format Cells menu and hop over to Conditional, and if we add a new one, it's going to take in an action, an attribute, and then a function right here. Called the conditional formula. So I'm going to select the cell. I'm going to exit here and start with the other one actually. So I'm going to exit the cell, or excuse me, select the cell discounted products. I apologize, moving a little slow on my end. And head back into our Format Cells menu and add a conditional format. So I want my action to be suppression. So one of the really cool things you can do with conditional formatting is suppress the entire row. Regardless of which cell is selected, it will suppress the entire row that that cell is located in. And when you do select suppression, the attribute becomes a moot point because there's not more than one way to suppress a row. You can either suppress it or it is unsuppressed. So our attribute is done for us, and then we just have to fill in a formula. So we are going to set the formula here to order details.discount, so that field equals 0. So this says in plain English, suppress this row if the discount of the associated order ID is 0. So I'm going to go ahead and apply that. And this is all I need for this formula. If this evaluates to true, it will suppress the entire row of the cell that I have applied this to. So I'll go ahead and apply that. And we can see that this little box appears in the cell and lets us know that we are using conditional formatting on this cell. So I'm going to go ahead and also apply the reverse to the regular price product header. So this is simply going to be the same action. It's going to give us the same attribute, of course. And the only difference here is that we want our formula to be the same field, order details.discount, but this time greater than 0. So we want, again, in plain English, we want this row, which displays discounted items, regular price items to suppress if the discount is greater than 0. So if the product is discounted, we want to suppress the row that says regular priced items because it's no longer relevant as a header. And I'm going to make this greater than 0. Okay. So now that I've done this, we can run this report and check out our finished product. And we will see that it very closely mirrors the reports shown to us by Evan and Nicole. So we have our regular price products displayed over all of our products with a 0% discount and a correct total revenue up here. And if we page through, we'll see the same for discounted products as well as for other employees. Okay, so that completes the walkthrough of this final option for creating the report to display with non-nested grouping logic using sort by formula and conditional formatting, the information that we're trying to report on. Please continue to type questions if you're in the process. We are combing through them right now, and we'll be answering the ones that we feel would benefit the entire group live momentarily. Otherwise, we'll be sure to reach out individually and answer your questions that way, of course.
So there was a question, somebody asked, is there a reason we cannot link into a change report? So the reason you can't link to a change report, assuming you're talking about linked reports, is because change reports are very much similar to dashboards in their architecture. And what I mean by that is change reports and dashboard reports are both what we consider composite reports, meaning they're made up of separate report items. So it wouldn't necessarily make sense to link to a composite report that contains many other reports.
There was another question. Can you add a prompt to include only items with a discount of 25% or something similar? And you absolutely can. I'm can walk you through that. It would be the same process as applying another sort of filter. But using this report as an example, you can simply go to the filters menu. And apply a filter for discount. And now let's say what we'd like to see is still our two groups where we have regular priced items and discounted items, but for the discounted items, we only really want to see the 25% discounted items. So we're going to change our operator to is one of, and then from the drop-down, we're going to select 0 because we still want to see our regular priced items. And then of the positive or greater than 0 options, we're just going to go with 25%, which is right here. And then click OK. Now when we run the report, we have our 0 here, and then 25%. And if you wanted this to prompt to the end user, you could simply go back again into filters and select the new filter that you created and select down here where it says prompt for value, click on prompt for value. And now when we run the report, we're asked to confirm that these are the values we want to select. This is our standard filter window. It is possible to simplify this window for end users if you go over to Options, General, and then select here Simple, for example, with operator. Let's go ahead and use that one as an example. Now when we run the report, the user is presented with a pared down version of that same window, and they're still able to adjust both the condition and the value. This is something that's covered in the basic end user training, but this is how it applies in this case.
Okay, so we'll hang around for a couple minutes and see if any other questions come in. I hope that we have adequately answered the ones that we have answered live. And if you do not feel that you have a good understanding of it, certainly rephrase the question or send it in and just say, could you please go over that again? We're happy to oblige, no problem at all.
And if you have any comments or questions about the support lab as an entity, you're welcome to share those with us as well. This is, of course, as you know, the first time we're doing it this way, doing this particular style of training. So if you have any thoughts you'd like to share, we're very open to your feedback.
Okay, it looks like we are about at the end of our first Exago Support Lab. I want to take a moment and thank all of you so much for your active participation. It really means so much to us. We've worked very hard to make this something centered around the questions that we've received from all of you and from real clients, and based on feedback from all of you from the basic end user training and the advanced end user training and feedback in general. Interactivity is something we really value, and we really want to give you guys the best support possible. So we hope that this proved helpful to all of you. Thank you so much for attending, and we really hope to see you at the next one. We are very excited to make this a monthly thing with Exago. So thank you so much, and I look forward to talking to you next time.